Hello everybody, welcome back to Norwich Talk for another transfer speculation video. We are in fact on a bit of a hot streak in terms of these transfer videos on this channel at the moment. We've made videos on Dennis Mann and Jacob Sorensen, two very interesting players, two very interesting potential transfers in regards to players that Norwich City might be signing. Now if you can check them out, I'll be very grateful. The link to them videos will be in the description down below. Now today's video provides a new challenge, which is pronouncing this player's name, but thanks to Dan O'Hagan on Twitter, he put a tweet out, which is on the screen right now, saying or suggesting how to pronounce the name, which is Przemyslaw Placheta. So for the rest of this video, I will be referring to him as Placheta because I think that just sort of avoids any annoyance to anyone or any offence, which is something we don't want to do here. Now, what I'm going to do in this video is tell you what we know about him and then what I think he'll bring to Norwich City and perhaps why Norwich City are looking for that type of transfer. And the first thing that I will say is, in fact, that this sort of transfer is, I think, more credible than non-credible because Connor, in fact, released an article or wrote an article for The Pinkin, which is popping up on the screen right now and will also be in the description box down below. Right, what do we know about him? We know that he's 22 years old. We know that he's predominantly a left winger, that he plays in the Polish first tier, which playing in the first tier at any sort of country is always sort of the best that a player can be doing in that country. Of course, it's an obvious thing to say, but it's worth remembering. This season, so the 1920 season that is, of course, he made 34 appearances, scoring 8 goals with 5 assists, which isn't too bad for a fairly young player. However, I said the same thing in my Dennis Mann video in regards to the fact that I think if he came to Norwich City, you'd look for a few more assists and a few more goals. We have no idea what his teammates around him are like, so perhaps he has created like 50 chances that should have been taken, a bit like Emi Buendia this season. But yeah, I think if he came to Norwich, you'd look for a little bit more in terms of goals and assists. More assists, as I said in the Dennis Mann video as well. You look at a winger for assists more than goals, of course. Other interesting things to me are the fact that he's capped for Poland's under 18s, 19s and 21s. We know that any sort of international football is invaluable experience. We know that if you're being noticed by your country as a young prospect early on, that's always promising, isn't it? We know here in England, as England fans, that we sort of view the importance of youth players, really, I think is the key phrase there. You look at players like Max Aarons at Norwich, Ben Godfrey, all coming through sort of now the England under 20s or 23s, whoever they play for, whatever. But getting noticed at that level is an important thing, and it's invaluable experience to a player in terms of their development. Another interesting thing to me is that he spent ages 15 to 17 at RB Leipzig's youth system, setup, academy, whatever you want to call it. And we know that Germany has got a reputation for sort of developing good young players. Now, I mentioned sort of young English talents. Now, if you combine the ideas of young English talents and a good German setup, you look at players like Jadon Sancho as your prime example, being developed as a youngster into a player valued at 100 million, however you want to phrase that, so to speak. But hopefully that is good experience for him, and as I said, this is potentially me clutching at straws, but I did find it quite interesting that he spent a bit of his youth there, and I think that will provide good invaluable experience for him, just like playing for Poland at sort of a youth level. Now, in terms of stats and sort of facts, that is all we know about him. I say we, that's all I know about him, and that's as far as my research took me. Now, in terms of more subjectivity, he is reportedly very pacey, which I think is very interesting. I think is the main reason behind this potential transfer to Norwich City, because Norwich lack that real depth in pace a bit further up the pitch. We've obviously got two very quick fullbacks who you can argue won't be here next season, but in terms of a bit further up the pitch, we've only got Onel Hernandez, who is willing to use that pace and sort of run at defenders. Now, hopefully, Placheta can come into this club and do that, and provide a challenge to Onel Hernandez, because it says he's a left winger, and Onel Hernandez is also a left winger. However, also it is worth remembering that I think it's not rare, but you don't really have wingers sort of dedicated to one side or the other. I think there's always this idea that they can be very fluid and interchangeable, which works in many footballing systems nowadays. We've seen it this season with Todd Cantwell sort of drifting inside and Emi Buendia drifting inside. You're not always stuck to your wings, are you? However, if he was to come in and do this, that could be good because it could provide Daniel Farke with a plan B. Now, the main criticism of Daniel Farke has been that he hasn't got a plan B. So the intention for me, and I think Norwich City maybe, is that this player will provide an option, a second option for Daniel Farke. An interesting thing as well is that the club's vice president did in fact confirm that Norwich City and the club are in negotiations, as is mentioned in Connor's article as well. So I think this one is fairly likely to happen. And I've got in brackets here in front of me that it is for a reported €2 million, which I don't really know what I make of that price tag, to be honest with you, because I think any time Norwich have spent over £1 million, it's been like, wow, Norwich has spent over £1 million because we've spent so little since Stuart Webber and Daniel Farke have come in. So perhaps this could sort of infer that he is a first teamer, or that Norwich have a little bit more money in the bank. Now, I'd probably go for the latter, because Stuart Webber said in his conference that he sort of recently hosted that Norwich have a little bit more money in the bank, and that the club's in the best financial shape it's been in since he's actually been at the club. So I'd probably go for the latter option, which is that Norwich have a bit more money to spend and provide Daniel Farke with a bit more depth. In terms of what I think this could mean for Norwich in the future, I think it means that Todd Cantwell is likely to leave. I've got here Hernandez or Cantwell to leave, and I think you look at the two players, Cantwell is the more likely. I think he's more suited to the Premier League level, and obviously he's English and young, which means some other team is going to have to snap him up from Norwich City, because that's the way we function. You look at players like Jacob and Josh Murphy, James Maddison, Alex Pritchard, all leaving Norwich City at a youngish age. I think Murphy's and Maddison were a bit younger than Pritchard was. But I think if you compare the two players, I think Cantwell's a bit more likely to leave. I'm sure we can all agree on that. So it'll be interesting to see how the two work, Hernandez and Placheta, that is, in regards to who starts for Norwich City. I think they're there to provide each other with a bit more competition. Now, in theory, the idea of competition is good, but sometimes there is sort of the idea that it is a bit of a cop-out in terms of the idea behind a transfer should be for a player to play first-team football, not provide competition for another player. But we saw with the likes of Ralph Fairman, that is how it can work, and this idea of competition can work. So it'll be interesting to see how it works here. In the left wing position, obviously goalkeeper is a very different position to left wing in terms of competition and playing time. Now, that is all we actually know about Placheta, and all that I really have to say about him, to be honest with you. I think it would be an interesting signing for Norwich City. I'm very, very keen to know your thoughts in the comments down below on the potential transfer to Norwich City. Also the price as well. What are you making of €2 million? Is it a lot in your eyes? Is it surprising you that Norwich City are perhaps spending over £1 million on a player? But yeah, that's just about everything in this video. Make sure you check out the description box down below for all the social links. If you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Norwich Talk 1902, we would be incredibly grateful. Also subscribe to the channel, give the video a little thumbs up. We'd be also grateful for that. Big thank you to everyone who's been subscribing lately. We've gained a fair few subs by our standards in the last month, so we're very, very grateful for that. We are also going to be making a video on Ballymumba, which will come out on Saturday, and Sebastian Soto, which will come out on Sunday. And I think that's probably us up to date in terms of transfers until more names are inevitably thrown into the Norwich City sphere and echo chamber. But yeah, that is just about everything. And until next time, we'll see you again very, very soon.